Hey gang, Kirk Faulkner here from the Knowledge Coop, freshly back from Washington, D.C. and MBA's National Advocacy Week. First, I want to say it was an incredible experience, and we'll get into more detail about all the good stuff that happened, but I want to try to give you a couple of takeaways. And the number one topic that came up with almost everyone we spoke with or spoke to was trigger leads. When they first came out, it was really a cool thing for me as a lender to know that my borrower had applied for credit somewhere, but trigger leads have kind of become the bane of our existence. What we found in Capitol Hill was bipartisan support for trigger lead legislation. And basically, they're trying to break it down into four categories of acceptable trigger leads. The first one would be your existing mortgage company, the person that you originated that loan with who holds your mortgage. The second would be the servicing company that holds a servicing on your mortgage. That's a legitimate entity that has permission to have your data. The third one would be any depository lender with which you have a financial relationship. And the fourth one would be anyone else that you have opted in and agreed to allow them to have your information. Everybody, right, left, and middle, were in support of some legitimate, responsible trigger lead legislation. So we felt like that was a great win for the MBA and for all of us in this business. This one should probably make its way into law by the end of this session. You know, I've got another key takeaway from my time in DC. It's really easy to hold a lot of disdain or vitriol towards our elected officials. That vitriol is so passionately felt and so oftentimes undeserved. And what takes away some of that vitriol or that disdain is when we actually look at elected officials as human beings. And that was one of the really powerful things about the time in DC. Day one, we're listening to elected officials come and speak to 500 some MBA members in a room talking about the things that they're passionate and care deeply about. And on day two, we're actually going to the Hill having one-on-one or one-on-two conversations with those elected officials or their aides. We sat down in one senator's office and we introduced ourselves as representing the MBA, and immediately the aide from the senator's office said, "Oh, this should be interesting. You represent the MBA and I represent a Democratic senator. I bet we don't have anything in common." To which I was able to say, "Respectfully, I think you're wrong. And let me talk to you for a minute about trigger leads," which we talked about as my first takeaway. It turns out that we have everything in common on a couple of key issues, and they're very reasonable. We even talked with a Democratic representative about responsible and reasonable deregulation. Now, that's normally not a word that the left side of the aisle likes to talk about, but in this case, everybody understood that nearly 25% of the cost of new construction and residential housing is regulatory red tape. When you approach these conversations, whether it's in your own backyard or with your state and local officials, or should you take the time to go out to DC, recognize that you're just simply talking to a human that has passions and opinions and perspectives just like you. And if you can find that common middle ground, you're going to find an awful lot more engagement, an awful lot more common ground, and an awful lot more effective communication. All right, so we're going to wrap it up with takeaway number 3. It's kind of a shame on me story because I haven't been as involved as I would have liked to have been in the past during the course of my career. And I was so impressed with how the MBA put this event together. We were equipped with all the talking points and all the detail having to do with that so I could self-educate, and we found the reception was fantastic. Most of what we were talking about had tremendous bipartisan support, and if it didn't, I found a very willing audience engaged in conversation as long as we were armed with real information and not just opinion. So I guess the takeaway here is get involved. Involvement at the local level is powerful and important, and I encourage you to continue doing that if you're doing it. If you haven't done any of that, get involved. But going back to where the laws of our country are passed at a national level is critically important. And my experience this week showed me that. I got to engage with people who are making decisions that affect the industry that has fed my family for a lot of years. So if you get that chance, I would encourage you to take it. It's worth the money, it's worth the time, it's worth your personal investment to be educated on the issues that are affecting our industry. So there's your challenge. If you need a little kick in the butt like I did, then here's your kick in the butt. Get active, get involved, and do something to make a difference in the industry that puts food on your table as well.